My name is Rob Kornahrens. I'm the CEO and founder of Advanced Roofing and Advanced Families of Business, which includes advanced green technologies and advanced air systems and advanced lightning protection systems. Today, you're going to learn a lot about what's going on with the solar, if it's right for you, and the return on investments. But I want to give you a little bit about my background. I work for a roofing company in Long Island, New York, for high school and college. I was got a position with them in Atlanta in 1979. They moved me to Fort Lauderdale in 1982. In 1983, I started Advanced Roofing with one pickup truck and a small loan from my dad. And we just grew it from there, always in the commercial re-roofing and maintenance. In 1994, we started Advanced Air Systems, which is the mechanical division. And then we went in 2006, we Advanced Green Technologies. We got into the solar business, realizing that all these things tied into the building directly, the air conditioning, the solar, and the roofing. So that's how we got into the AGT, Advanced Green Technologies. We took on the thin film technology. I was able to get Dade County approval for Unisolar, which we private labeled. At the same time, we were doing EPC work, installing up in New Jersey and up in Canada and in the United States and Florida. So we've grown quite a bit in that area. It's about 20% of our business and continues to grow. On the screen here is Clint Sockman. He's a partner, and then we also have our AGT team, including my two sons, Kevin Kornahrens and Mike Kornahrens, twins. The four of us lead the company, but really it's all about our whole organization with our core values and beliefs. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Clint to give you a great presentation on the solar industry.
No, thanks, Rob. Appreciate the introduction. Yeah, we got a lot of ground to cover today. A little bit more about just who AGT is. Rob mentioned we started AGT in 2006 as an offshoot of Advanced Roofing, really focused on building rooftop solar. And it's evolved over the last 15 years to where we are today, a very vertically integrated, kind of diversified general contractor specialized in the solar business. We handle anything from the electrical side. We acquired our primary electrical subcontractor 4 years ago, structural design, roofing licenses, electrical licenses, solar licenses, general contractors licenses. We've installed over 300 megawatts here around the country, from Canada all the way down to the Virgin Islands. Right now, we operate primarily in the Southeast United States. And we really practice what we preach. We practice energy efficiency, HVAC upgrades, lighting upgrades, kind of really reducing the energy that we use, and then also producing it. Our corporate office in Fort Lauderdale has 5 solar arrays and offsets a significant portion of our demand. Some of our buildings are actually net zero. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to one of our newest members of the team, Julia Barton. Julia comes to us with a lot of solar experience coming from Europe, and we're excited to have her working on the business development side, focused on growing our outreach with architects, engineers, general contractors. So Julia, take it from here.
Thank you, Clint, and good morning, everyone. I'm Julia Barton, and I'm responsible for the new construction activities. And I wanted to start it off today by talking to you about why solar is such a hot topic and why everybody is talking about it right now. We see a lot of large-scale companies, big Fortune 500 companies that are moving towards renewable energy. And, big firms integrating it into their policies and into new construction designs. And we see really three big drivers. So first of all, of course, is environmental. Comparing it to a few years ago, and, nowadays it's really verified. The science is behind it. It's happening right now in front of us. We can see it in Florida too, rising sea levels, algae blooms, it's all there and it's verified. Another big thing is, the financial part of it. We have some great tax equity, incentives for solar energy. Costs are falling. The technology is proven nowadays, so that's a big driver as well. And then lastly, and really not undeniable, is the millennial generation. They're the largest generation in history, and they're also today's workforce. By 2025, they're going to be 75% of the workforce. So they're going to be your employees. So either if you're targeting them as an employee or as a consumer, they're going to be relevant to you and your company. So moving on to the next slide, I would like to talk a little bit about, how does solar work? A lot of people think that it's very complicated, but it's really not. We typically see two types of systems. So we have your typical grid type system and then a typical hybrid system. And I'll just go through them briefly. So how it works is that you have a solar array generating energy. So that could be on a rooftop or on a solar canopy, or even a ground mount system, and that's generating direct current. You're going to need an inverter for that to invert the energy to alternate current, which is going to match the energy consumption in your building or facility. So the energy that is being used and being generated is being used on the facility directly. But if there is ever any excess energy, it can be exported to the grid. And this is where you get a one-on-one credit through a net metering agreement. What does that mean? That means that if you need energy when you're not producing it, for instance, at night, you can pull it back from the grid. Now, net metering is a great policy in Florida to stimulate renewable energy. There are some policy changes coming up, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And then another system, which is kind of the opposite, instead of exporting the energy to the grid, you're going to be storing it in batteries. So what happens here is we see a lot of hybrid models where it will be connected to the grid and have a battery in place. And the battery has two functions then. It can be used as an emergency backup power, or it can be used for demand side management. Because you're storing the energy in batteries, you have the ability to release it at an opportune moment. That can result into a financial benefit. We don't see it that much yet because of the net metering that is in place. But having that said, the costs are falling, the technology is improving, so we feel that it's going to be a big part of our business in the future. So moving on to the next slide. It's time for a poll. And as mentioned before, I handle new construction, so I would really like to get your opinion on this. And the question is, who typically handles solar design work in new construction? And the question will pop up in your screen so you can answer. The answers are coming in. It looks like most of you are leaning towards the architect, solar EPC design builder, a few other answers in there. Yeah, so the correct answer is actually it can be all four. All four of them can be part of the design of a solar system, but they do need to have a professional engineer on staff and be certified to do so. So it was a little bit of a trick question, but that does lead into my next slide. So what we often see is that, architects and engineers are, especially in new construction, handing it off to our design team for a delegated design or a design assist. That's something that we see every single day. And we have, a whole in-house design team. We have 2 professional engineers on staff. We have 2 electrical engineers. We have NABCEP certified staff. We're a licensed AC electrical division. And of course, we're a licensed roofer. We have the capability to do, the full design from concept to full design. Foundation, structural, electrical drawings included. Now, having that said, we can often do it hand-in-hand in coordination with second or third party, so that can be, directly with the owner. developer, architect, or a general contractor. Moving on to the next slide. I just wanted to give you an idea of, what our design capabilities are. And I've added 2 samples of documents to give you an idea. So you see here at the top part, it's a rooftop solar design with 4 arrays, and it's in a high velocity wind zone. You see on the left that it's at 169 miles per hour wind zone. Each array is about 100 solar panels, which you can see on the 3rd picture. And, go all the way down on that picture, you see that each array has 2 mechanical attachments. So 1 in each corner. So for this entire system, you have 8 mechanical attachments for a system of 400 solar panels. So I really wanted to showcase that, you don't need much mechanical attachments in this case. And, it's collaborative design with one of our manufacturers. And the second part is a site-specific drawings for a solar canopy. And you see all the structural drawings and the electrical drawings are there, and it's stamped by our own PE. So you have the advanced logo and stamp on there. So it's issued for construction. So thank you. That was all my slides. I'm handing the word over to Matt, my colleague. He's the Director of Sales and Strategic Accounts, and he's going to talk to you about our capabilities.
Hey, Matt, I think you're on
Matt,
mute.
you're on mute. Yep.
Good call. Thank you, Julia. My name is Matt Jeffries. I'm AGT's Director of Strategic Accounts. I obviously don't know how to work teams very well. We've now covered why solar is so popular, and we've also talked briefly about how it works. I'd like to move on and show you what it looks like in various commercial applications, beginning with rooftop solar. AGT is a division of one of the largest commercial roofing contractors in the state of Florida, which is Advanced Roofing. So as you would imagine, rooftop solar is naturally our largest commercial solar segment. The images in the attached slide represent a variety of mounting configurations from commercial flat roofs to standing seam metal. Rooftop solar is still typically the most cost-effective commercial solar installation. However, there does seem to be a stigma around mounting solar panels on a perfectly good commercial roof, and I'll address those in the next couple slides. So the first question that everybody asks, or the first concern, which is really legitimate, is will my roof leak, right? I have a roof that's maybe a year old, maybe 5 years old. It's under warranty, operating flawlessly. When I add solar panels, is that roof going to leak? It's kind of a trick question. If you look at the image on the left-hand side, this is a law firm in West Palm Beach. It's a concrete deck with a coated modified roof. You can see a prior solar contractor. This was not an AGT install, but their version of installing solar was, drilling through the existing membrane, through the insulation, into the structural deck, literally dropping in anchors, threaded rod, coming up above the membrane, and then sealing around that, right? So is your roof going to leak here? Yes, this roof did leak. This was a massive repair job, including re-roofing for us. Now, on the contrary, if you look over to the image on the right-hand side, is this roof going to leak, right? And the answer there is no, right? I mean, it's actually foamed directly to the membrane. There's not a single mechanical attachment. There's no penetrations in this roof. But is that a proper installation? The answer there is obviously no. This roof warranty is void at this point, and the chances of this, this solar system staying in place during a high-velocity wind activity is unlikely. Now, on the other hand, if you look at the 3 green boxes on the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see the proper mechanical attachments that we use for a certified and warrantable solar installation. So this is the proper way to install it. We can warranty this installation. It doesn't matter whether it's a single ply, a modified roof, or even, as you see in that bottom attachment, that's for a standing seam metal, which clamps directly to the ridge. Speaking of warranties, let's move on to the next slide. So what does that process look like, right? You know, there's a lot of concern about warranty. Really, when you put a new roof on, that's the perfect time to incorporate solar. Warranty alignment is very important. You know, when you're putting solar on, you're investing in a 20 to 25 year asset. So you want your roof warranty to align with the timeline of the solar asset. So, you know, what's required on your part, it's really no different than if you were going to make any other modification to an existing roof that has a warranty. So say you're going to add a piece of mechanical equipment. In order to do that, you need to notify the manufacturer. There is a process that needs to be followed, including a post-installation inspection. Once that's happened, whether it's a mechanical device or a solar system, the manufacturer is going to issue you a warranty continuation certificate. So you're contractually supported by the manufacturer after the installation of the solar. There really is zero risk with any installation on a warranted roofing surface. This is a short video case study highlighting a new construction project where our scope included a 30-year high-performance roofing system with over a 1.5 megawatt solar system for a high-profile client. Costex tractor parts. This is a perfect example of a project where we worked hand in hand with a general contractor to deliver unique value to the owner through solar. So if you're on this call and you're a general contractor, I would ask that you don't overlook solar as a way to distinguish yourself from your competitors. In this example, our scope included everything from the deck up, including the lightweight concrete and that high performance membrane that we talked about. So we really can make it super simple for you to expand your scope on even an existing project that you have in-house. Moving on, if we talk about, moving on to solar parking structures, this is far and away the fastest growing segment of our business. All the images on this slide are projects that we did complete in Florida's high velocity hurricane zone. But you also notice that none of them are even nearly the same. On the top left, you have a galvanized structure that's it looks like it's shaped like an inverted L. And the project right next to it is more architectural and shaped like a T. And then on the top right, you've got, raised and painted piers, and it's shaped, more like a V. And the below images are much larger. One appears to be on a parking garage. As Julia mentioned early on, we have full in-house structural design capabilities, and we also self-perform all of the fabrication and erection. So we're one of the few solar carport builders really in the country who can design and build exactly what it is that our clients are asking for. And we'll take a look at another short video case study for a carport project we built for United Therapeutics at Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. And this project really demonstrates, I feel like, our design flexibility. In the lot furthest from the building, you got a couple of large, what we call super span carport structures, which offer full functionality, but they're slightly less architectural. Then, as you move in closer to the building, the radius carports flanking the entrance are much more architectural in nature. Again, because we're not using any pre-engineered structures, we can build whatever it is that the client's asking for. So if we move on to ground mount solar, when you think about ground mount solar, the first thing that at least comes to my mind are those, utility-owned mega farms, in the central part of the state that you typically see when you're running up or down the turnpike. The fact is that utilities are investing so heavily in this technology, and that just shows you how viable, commercial solar or even utility scale solar, just solar in general is, right? The same technology they're using definitely has a place in the commercial market as well. On the top left of this slide, you'll see a traditional pile-driven racking system that's almost identical to the products that they're using in those utility applications. Versus on the right, you're looking at a fully ballasted racking system that's using no driven piles whatsoever. And these ballasted systems are very useful when you have poor soil conditions or substrates that cannot be disturbed, for example, on like a landfill. The point is, just don't write off this technology. Costs here are very similar to roof-mounted solar, as long as you have decent scale. Floating solar, the next subject, also dubbed Float-o-voltaics, which I kind of like. It's kind of the new kid on the block in the United States, largely deployed in other parts of the world, and certainly viable, especially in commercial retention ponds, which are all over the state of Florida. If you look at it, you'll notice the only real difference between a rooftop solar array and a floating solar array is the racking system, right? All of the other commercially available proven components that are responsible for generating the power remain the same. I think you should keep an eye on floating solar in the coming years. I think we're going to see a lot more of it, and the costs are competitive with solar or a scalable ground mount system. And the kind of last topic that we'll look at is architectural solar. So in the top center image, you'll see, an example of a solar tree. And if you notice how, the panels used in this design don't have the traditional aluminum frame that you'd see in other commercial applications. And you can also see right through them. They're transparent. It's because they have a clear back sheet. These are frameless modules, actually, with a clear back sheet, and they're gorgeous. The message here, I think, is solar doesn't have to be buried on top of some roof somewhere where it's out of sight. With proper upfront planning in the design phase, solar can be incorporated into almost any architectural structure. A couple other
I have a question that relates to the different installation options. Yeah. But have you seen solar installations with covered building on farmlands?
With covered buildings on farmland?
Yeah, the question was, do you cover buildings on farmlands?
Do we cover buildings on farmland? Yes. On farmland, a lot of what you see is like a pre-engineered metal building or even like a pole-based structure. So whether that's a corrugated metal roof that we'd be adding solar to, or a standing seam metal roof that we would be adding solar to, that's actually going to be the lowest cost possible rooftop investment, probably the lowest cost solar installation, period.
I think the question may have been geared more towards, do we cover building on farmland, such as ground-mounted solar, which I think we did touch on a small scale. And we are doing a lot of that. The majority of the major projects that you see are utility-owned because they're selling the power to themselves. We do quite a bit of solar building for some of the municipal utilities, but it's very hard to build large-scale stuff on farmlands unless you have the ability to use the energy yourself in the state of Florida. With our power purchase laws, you can't sell the electricity back to any other consumer unless you sell it to the utility, which is a hard financial proposition. But we are building a single access tracker for the city of Quincy up in the Panhandle. We built a 2-megawatt landfill for City of Lake Worth utilities. So we do a lot of ground mounted work, but it's typically for the utilities or the municipals who have the ability to take the energy. So sorry, Matt, get to the exciting stuff, batteries.
Yeah. Thank you, Clint. I misunderstood that one, but I guess both are correct answers. So, regarding batteries, you're going to start hearing more and more of these terms, just like photovoltaics is starting to become more popular. The terms are B.E.S. and microgrid, and B.E.S. stands for a battery energy storage system, right? So obviously batteries are, that technology is vastly improving, costs are coming down. But when you're talking about microgrid, batteries are only really one component. They're a key component, but they're only one component of a true microgrid. So if you look at this diagram, really the heart of any microgrid is this controller. So in this scenario, you have, one microgrid load in the top right, and you have 6 different inputs that are offering, power to this controller. And the controller is using logic to make decisions in real time on where to take power and where to deploy power. So this can be, as Julia mentioned earlier in our discussion, this could be operated in an islanding mode, in an off-grid format, or using the grid as one of the inputs. And we have a project right now with the Seminole Tribe of Florida. It is a microgrid project where we're managing 4 independent, power sources, and managing and deploying those through the use of a microgrid controller, offering resilience to the Seminole Tribe that they wouldn't have through any other technology. Obviously generator is one of the components in this microgrid, but the generator alone couldn't offer what the complete microgrid solution does. So time for a poll. What type of solar installation has the best return on investment? I think I gave this one away already. All right. We've got responses coming in. We've got, looks like everybody's favoring rooftop solar pretty heavily. I think that's what I mentioned earlier. Floating solar right in there too, with scale for sure. It is kind of a trick question. I mean, I always tell Clint I'd rather have a megawatt carport than a 10 kW rooftop, and those two will pencil similarly, right? So scale matters. I don't know that there's a right answer, but generally rooftop solar is the most competitive. So let's move on to the next slide. So when we're talking about, solar clients in general, and, really speaking with clients is what I do for a living. So I've probably talked to hundreds, if not thousands of clients over a period of several years. And I think if you interviewed 1,000 people and said, hey, is renewable energy and solar the right thing to do for the environment? You're going to get 900 and something responses that say, yeah, you're an idiot. Of course it is, right? I mean, that's all proven. We get that. On the other hand, if you ask that same group, is it good for my balance sheet? Is it the right thing to do for my business? Does it make smart financial sense? You're going to get a really mixed response. There's a perception out there that it's just too expensive, or there's a lot of clients out there that just don't really understand what it is, and the technology is changing so fast and the cost patterns are changing so fast that if you have a perception in your mind of what it was, that may not be accurate today. So I'm going to move on and talk a little bit more about clients in general and just in general financials, I think, because we do spend a lot more time trying to explain the financial aspects of solar, and the environmental benefits just come along with that, right? So we're typically looking for an owner operator. As Clint mentioned in the response to that question with the solar farms, you're going to be limited in your interconnection agreement to 15% over what you can consume on a per meter basis in the state of Florida, right? So you need to have consumption, and that drives us to owner operators. You also need to have an appetite for tax equity or the ability to offload that tax equity. And I say need, I guess, kind of loosely, because a lot of these deals still pencil even for non-taxable entities, but there is currently a 26% federal tax credit that's available. So that's 26 cents on the dollar, dollar for dollar offset of any tax liability that you have at the end of the year. And it also qualifies for 100% first year accelerated depreciation. So if you want to think about it simply, roughly 50 cents on every dollar, the full project cost comes back to you in the form of tax credits or tax equity in the first year of the project being online. We're going to talk a little bit later about return on investment timing, but you're looking at, probably a minimum of a 4 to 6 year return on investment or payback. So that means we're looking for clients that are going to be in the property or own the asset for a minimum of 3 to 5 years. We'll talk a little later about, finance options as well, different, kind of custom strategies, but we're looking for companies with financial strength. And it's listed last on here, but as a huge roofing contractor, it should really be listed first. Roof life, the condition of the existing roof. Years 1 to 10, those are great candidates. Years 10 to 15, as a roofing contractor, we tell a lot of clients, hey, these roofs just might not make good sense without some type of a restoration taking place on that roof to extend the life so that it's more in line with that 25-year warranty that you're going to get with that solar system. And then lastly, roofs that are at end of life that are in need of replacement, that's the perfect scenario. You put a brand new roof on, you got a 25-year warranty, 20 to 25, put a solar system on, you have that warranty alignment that's so important, as we talked about earlier. So, you know, what can a client expect from a payback scenario? These are just kind of high level, you know, rules, but you're looking at probably 4 to 6 years in the flat roof space. Solar parking structure is very, you know, much larger by scale. So, you know, megawatt, you might be in the 6 years, as low as 6 years, or, you know, in smaller structures, you know, 5 to 10 parking spots, double that potentially, right? The one thing I want to kind of highlight, if you take one thing out of this entire presentation, I think this is the most important. We've got a cash flow on the right. And this is, I just want to walk you through a scenario. So this is a client that called us, a manufacturer in Central Florida. They called us, they said, hey, we've got roof problems, the roof's leaking. You know, we go out, we look at the roof, we reconsult with the client. You know, we've got a quote in hand. We say, hey, that roof, you probably already know it's 25 years old. It's at the end of its life. There's really no saving it. And here's your new roof quote. It's $841,000. You know, how does that sound? Is that in your CapEx budget for next year? Were you planning on an $841,000 sunk cost? You know, and the client's typically like, oh my God, no, I didn't even know a roof cost $841,000, right? So then here's where it gets kind of crazy. I say, okay, so what would happen if you put $2.3 million worth of solar on top of this $841,000 roof? And you know, the client's like, so now we're talking about a $3 million investment. What are you talking about? You're out of your mind. Until you look at the right-hand column on this chart, right? So that's the rolling cash flow. So you've got this $2.67 million expense on the solar. We'll call that incremental because the client wasn't planning on spending that $2.26 million for the solar. In year 5, that 2.6 or 2.2 is coming back to them. So they're breaking even on that incremental expense. By year 10, that full $841,000 they've recovered. So they've essentially recouped the cost of their roof within 10 years. And over the 25-year combined warranty of that asset, they've freed up $4.5 million in cash flow. Right. So this is a pretty big deal. It's not a question of can you come up with the cash, because we can finance deals like this on a 10-year term, and you wouldn't even need to come up with the original 841 for the roof. You could be cash flow positive on this whole deal in year 1 and never dip into the red, you know, more than say 10 to 15% of the total project cost. So, you know, this is a pretty strong proposition, whether you're a general contractor, whether you're an owner operator. You know, you really got, if you plan on staying in your facility for a period of time, you know, over in the 10-year range, you know, you should consider solar with a new roof. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time in the weeds on each of the finance options that we offer to commercial solar clients, especially considering that a large majority of our projects are cash purchases. But I do want to make sure everyone knows that there are custom finance solutions out there that are available to meet specific client needs. So maybe you're a taxable, but you don't have a heavy appetite for tax equity, and you would prefer to lease the solar system and let somebody else take the immediate tax benefit and roll part of the benefit into the term. An operating lease might make the best sense for you in your situation. Or maybe you're a public non-taxable entity where the tax credit doesn't benefit you at all. You may benefit, you know, from a third-party benefactor financing model where the financier takes the full tax credit in exchange for, you know, improvement in the terms. The key takeaway here is that we do offer unique finance solutions that address specific client situations. So don't think you need to come up with all the capital up front to build a project. And I think we've spent quite a bit of time talking about the federal tax benefits. The 26% ITC is a credit. It's not a deduction. So it is a dollar for dollar offset on a tax liability. You know, the entire asset can be depreciated in the first year. But there's also a couple Florida state incentives. You know, Julia mentioned net metering. That's certainly valuable. We'll talk a little bit about it more, you know, in a later slide. It's also state sales tax exempt and exempt from any property tax that might come along with the improvement of the property. So speaking of net metering, this is a hot topic right now for sure. This House Bill 741, you might have seen it on the news. I can tell you if you Google HB 741, just as I did 6 days ago when I was putting this slide together, you're going to get the results on the right? So simply unbelievable, save solar. It's definitely, this is an attack, a direct attack on net metering. But I think it helps if you kind of dissect it and understand what it is. So this does impact net metering agreements with utilities, right? So if you're an end user, you're relying on net metering, and the value of that power that you put out onto the grid right now is exactly the same as when you take it back, let's say at night or at a different time. This bill has passed the House on March 2nd. It's supported, it actually passed the Senate on the 7th. So, other than veto, there's nothing stopping this. But what it is the value of the excess power that you put through your meter when it spins in reverse. As of today, like I mentioned, that's 100% export credit. So if you're taking power for 10 cents, you're putting it out on the grid for 10 cents or accessing it later at the same net value. There's no change that's going to happen for the next 22 months. So that's going to remain in place as it is. And any contracts that are signed within that next 22 months remain in the current net metering configuration for a period of 20 years. They're grandfathered in. Now, you can see over a period of the next 7 years, that 100% credit drops down to 75, then 60, then 50%. So it's important to note it's based on the application approval date. So as long as you have your application approved within that period of time, you're grandfathered in for that 20-year time frame. So that's a good thing because we do understand, you can make an investment and you can understand what that investment's going to look like over the warranty period or the life of that equipment. There's also no recapture fees for commercial clients. Time for another poll. How much solar can you fit on a 10,000 square foot roof? And this is kind of going to segue into the last few slides here as we're talking about design, kind of rough design napkin math, like I like to call it. And we got some different responses. We got 120 kW. We've got 150 kW. Good answer. 50. 100 kW is leading the way, and that's the correct answer. You can count on, obviously, mechanical equipment in conflict has an impact, but for the most part, you can count on, if you're just trying to kind of get an idea, you can typically count on about 10 watts per square foot. So let's move on to the next slide, which is about feasibility analysis, right? So, whether you're an owner or you're a contractor who's representing an owner, and you just want to kind of scratch out, get an idea of how much solar can you produce on the property, what does the financial return on investment look like? We can do that real quick over the phone, probably in less than 30 minutes. All I really need from you, or all we need from you, is the location where we're going to put this. We're going to need some utility history if it's not new construction. We need 12 months of power bills. We're also going to need some owner inputs on preference, what your corporate tax rate is if we're going to do financial return on investment calculations, but minimal information. It's super easy to do, high level evaluations. Let's move on to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit more about what those specific things are. So the first question I'm going to ask you if you call me and say, hey, I want to understand what my potential is within the next hour, I'm going to say, okay, are we trying to generate power, or are we also trying to generate hot water? Because there are products out there that can produce both. As we mentioned, I need 12 months of power bills, and the reason I really need that if they're available is because, remember, if you think back to that limitation, I can only produce 115% of what you could consume on your meter. So I need to know how much consumption you actually have on the site. Corporate tax rate, we talked about that. We're not going to overproduce. We're going to size it typically to 95 to 100% of your demand. And these last three, I think, are good rules of thumb if you're going to just kind of scratch something down. We mentioned 10 watts per square foot of clean rooftop capacity. And in Florida, and this is close enough for napkin math again, but you can go from the kilowatt hours on your bill to the system size DC solar that you would need to produce those kilowatt hours in a year by multiplying or dividing by 1.5. And I'll give you an example. So we've got a 10,000 square foot roof. We, you multiply by that by 10, we can probably put 100,000 DC watts on that roof. That's 100 kW. You multiply that by 1.5. In 1 year, that's going to produce 150,000 kilowatt hours, right? So pretty easy math. Then if we have your bill and we see you're paying 10 cents a kilowatt hour, we can say, well, that's going to produce about $15,000 worth of power. So real quick, we can scratch this out, get you some answers. When we're talking about carports, little different production factor, you're looking at about 18 watts per square foot or roughly 3,300 watts DC per parking spot. So you can kind of see how easy this is just to do some feasibility type calculations and figure out if it makes sense, if it might make sense for your particular situation. And my name is Matt Jeffries. Julia Barton, our contact information is on here. I think we're going to, we'd love to hear from you. I mean, call us anytime. We can turn around a full finance grade proposal for you, or we can even just kind of talk through some napkin math, do some feasibility calculations while you're on the phone with us with some, minimal type information.